Hi, everybody. I'm Marisa. If you weren't here last night, my pronouns are she, her, and I am the owner and operator of Pretty Little Yarns. We're a small online yarn shop located in Vaughan, Ontario, which is just a little north of Toronto. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what my shop is all about today. But first, let me show you this. So just so you know, right out of the gate, we have a promo code going on for 15% off select items in the shop. The promo code is virtual 2024. I will show it again at the end. The website is prettylittleyarns.ca. That'll also come up at the end. And yeah, so please don't leave now that you've seen that. I am ready to rock and roll. So for people who are new, a lot of people might have seen me before at Fibre Love Affair because I keep coming back. But if you don't know me, I love supporting small businesses. And so when I opened my shop, that was one of the primary goals of my business. So most of our products come from other small independent dyers and makers. So we carry Sweet Paprika, Essence of Autumn, which I'll get into a little bit more later on in the slideshow. Estelle yarns and Cascade yarns are kind of our bigger name, like commercially dyed things. Dye Pretty is me. Felt Pretty is also me, and we'll get into those later as well. Chip and Sparrow is our line of locally made looms. They're lots of fun if you're just learning to weave. Bling Your String does our project bags. So that kind of gives you a little rundown. Our project bag selection is quite minimal right now because our show season kind of just wrapped up and I have not restocked that at the moment. But that being said, there's lots of fun things to find on the website. If you're poking around on the website and you notice there's a couple of pictures missing here or there, it's not quite up to what you're used to on my website. We are in the process of rephotographing everything and revamping our website into a new, it's supposed to run faster and do, I don't know. I'm not quite sure what it's supposed to do, but it's supposed to be better. So hoping to get that serving you better later on, but please bear with us if you notice anything not quite the way that it normally would be. And if there's anything that you don't see a photo of and you want to see a photo of it, please DM me. I'm happy to show you. So diving right through, the next thing would be a little bit about Sweet Paprika. So later on in my presentation, I'm going to be showing samples galore. And a lot of them are from Sweet Paprika Designs. So the ladies behind Sweet Paprika are Debbie and Elizabeth Sullivan. And they are not only dyers extraordinaire out of Montreal, they also are sisters and they are also excellent designers. So I have a few of their designs knit up in their yarns to show off what their bases can do. But I have their three superwash merino bases, Messa de Voce, Minuet, and Andante. They're all superwash merino in the fingering DK and worsted weights. And then I also carry their Crescendo line, which is their gradient set. And some of the Crescendo line actually goes together. So each set is 6 colors, but as you can see, if I move my big head, hang on a second. If I move myself out of the way a little bit, you can see that goes more than 6 colors, and that's because I put 2 sets together. So, sorry, I know that's unsettling when I just move myself around like that. So with that said, if there's a project that you need double sets for and you want them to transition together, reach out to me. I can show you different options that actually work together. Oh, and if you didn't notice in the chat, Rachel activated a special in her shop. So I'm not sure how that works, but there you have it. So that is a little bit about Sweet Paprika. I also carry Essence of Autumn. And one of the reasons I carry these particular dyers is I started carrying Sweet Paprika right when I opened because I love their yarn. I love their philosophy on yarn and things like that. And they do a really beautiful job of consistent colors and their yarns really stand up. Essence of Autumn has all of those things, but also it's a totally different dyeing style. So I'm just going to show you in a different view. over here. Oh, this must have moved. Sorry about that. There we go. So here are some of the Essence of Autumn yarns. And you can see it's a very different style than Sweet Paprika. It's very bold. It's kind of a sophisticated palette. And they use a totally different technique with the variegations and the speckles and all of that sort of thing. So that kind of gives you an idea. And I hope that the colors are coming out true to form because I have two monitors up here and they are two totally different colors, which is kind of the risk you run in this kind of situation. But I just wanted to show you, this is Essence of Autumn. The base is escarpment. And that's their chunky base. They also have Prairie Sock and Pasture Sock, which are both sock bases. The Pasture Sock is a BFL and nylon, superwash BFL and nylon. So if you have not knit with superwash BFL and nylon, it's going to be a slightly longer lasting or longer wearing sock than a merino and nylon because of the staple length of the fiber. Likewise, the Pasture Sport is a non-superwash BFL, blue face luster. So the Pasture lines are both blue face luster. Gilded merino, we only have a little bit of it at the moment. I have not restocked that yet this end of the season, but it is a sparkly base. So if you're into sparkles, I think we have 2 skeins of that one left in stock, and that's all. So next up is Dye Pretty Yarn and Fiber. That is me. So I started dyeing at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020. But my background in life is in interior design. So my background in color is very strong before I started dyeing. And so I have spent the last 4 years practicing and putting things together on different bases. And the way that I dye is a little bit different to a lot of other dyers, or I shouldn't say a lot of other dyers, some other dyers. I dye predominantly, almost exclusively in a wet medium. I almost never use powdered dye directly on the fiber, which tends to make my dyeing more painterly, more like watercolors, rather than being more intense speckles and things like that. And I use a line of dyes that only comes in 9 colors. So most of my colors are mixed specifically to my recipe. So that's what kind of makes things a little different. Before I move on from here, we have a whole load of different bases. I have 2 new bases that I would love to show you if you would indulge me. One of them is so new, it's not even on the website yet. And the other one but it is also quite new. And they were dyed and designed for a fall collection for autumn this year. And I'm kind of in love with the colors. So I'll start with, let me just switch the view again. So I'll start with this one. I'll put it, because the cameras might make a difference to the color too. So I'll put it here, and then I'll put it over here. So this is called September Sunset, and I've just undone my skein, but that's okay. You know what? Let's take advantage of that. Skein it back up later. So here is September Sunset, and it is a 4-color variegation, and you'll get to see that in a sample later on. And Regal Worsted, which is this base, is a 50% merino and 50% silk base. So it is very luxurious, has a little bit of sheen, and it's very drapey. Now, there's a cool color companion, I guess you'd say, to this, and that is this one, which is called Balsam Lake. And Balsam Lake is also a 4-color variegation, but in the cool colors. Let me move this guy out of the way. Oh boy. So that is that. And here it is in the skein. And in that same base, I also have, sorry, I knocked my camera stand, so now I'm having to fix that. In the same base, I have almost all, but not totally all, of the individual colors that came from this. So the complementary colors, which brings me to the next base, which is our new fingering BFL. So it is an untreated fingering BFL, and it is in those same fall colors. So, but only in the solids. So we've got plum, cranberry sauce, and butternut is the warm ones, which I'm gonna show them here too. I don't know which is better, but those are the warm ones. And then we have these cool ones, which I know earlier I was testing this out and oh no, colors are working now, or lichen. I'm never sure how to pronounce that. And this one here is Rosso, which is named after a lake in Northern Ontario. So that is a fingering base two ply, and the colors have come out really lovely on that. So moving back over. If you've seen me before at Fibre Love Affair, you have probably seen me talk about Felt Pretty, which is my line of felting things. Often I have done little felting demonstration for you all. Today I'm focusing on samples, so I'm not sure I'm going to get to a little felting demonstration for you, but that just leaves me something to talk about next time. However, I started needle felting because I am just a crafter who is always looking for the next craft. And I started needle felting out of sheer curiosity. And then my brain went, well, wouldn't it be funny to have wool stitch markers in your yarn, in your knitting? And that led me to needle felting stitch markers, which then led me into needle felting ornaments and kits and things of that nature. So the stitch markers are super lightweight, and they are lots of fun. They have lots of different designs. I think I'm due for some new designs though, so I will be working on those in the upcoming months as I'm getting ready for the holidays when I make all of my Christmas ornaments. So also next up, I think I might be covering some of this, but I've tried to put together a bunch of different notions and accessories that will complement our yarns. So one of the most popular accessories that we've had the last couple of years have been the thank you, Amanda, have been the yarn cutter necklaces. They are pretty. I like that they're pretty and you can actually wear them. But they also work fantastically. You can cut yarn with them, no problem. I sought them out to bring to the shop because I have one that I got when I was in university and it still works and it's still kicking. So it's a pretty decent way to cut your yarn, especially if you're traveling or anything like that. You'll see on the top, kind of like right above my head, that whole collection of wraps per inch tools and gauge measuring tools. Those are actually made by Rachel from Bear Valley Fibers. So she 3D printed those for me. And we worked together to kind of get the design right, but she is the one who did everything to make it perfect. So those are lots of fun too. And I have started carrying a bunch of, oh, wrong way, bunch of stitch stoppers. They are a lot of fun. I didn't set them out for me to show you because if I sat and showed you all of the stitch stoppers, we would be here for days because every single one is a different pair. I had too much fun picking them out. And I tried to pick out ones that I have not seen elsewhere. So I hope that you guys like the selection that I came up with. I have about half of them listed up on the site already, and I should be getting the rest of them listed throughout the week. Which brings me to the next point that that coupon code works through until October 31st. Although I'm not sure if I made it apply to stitch stoppers because it kind of gets tricky on the smaller products, but in any case, it'll be going right until the end of the month. that brings us to the kind of meat and potatoes of our presentation today. So I'm going to go through the samples that I have for you. And the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to show the slide at the beginning. Don't panic. I'm going to show the slide at the beginning. I'm going to show the samples. And then at the end, I'll put it back up in case you need to copy anything down. But if you miss it, don't worry, DM me. I can send you the whole like section that has all of these listed if you want. So don't stress over it. So I hope you enjoy this next part because I think this is the fun part. So I'm gonna make myself little. But yeah, if you wanted to, if you're interested in taking notes on these, a quick and easy thing to do would just be to screenshot when this part is up. But I'm going to switch over now. So this is our first sample, and it is knit in that regal worsted silk and merino that I was talking about. And you can see, maybe you can see, it's very drapey, very, very drapey. This is the Clapotis, which was released, I think it was 20 years ago, and Knitty.com, on Knitty.com, and they're doing a knit along right now called the Clapotis Fest, and they invited any dyers who wanted to participate in dyeing for that to participate. And so I did, and this is the colorway that I submitted for that, and this is the base for that as well. It's super cozy. The cool thing about the Clapotis is you can actually make it in any base. But I have one that I made 20 years ago when it first came out. And then this one is what I made for the Clapotis Fest, or sorry, a friend of mine made it for me. But that gives you somewhat of an idea of the way that the pooling will happen in those variegated yarns that I showed you earlier. Next up, I have the Reina shawl. This is called Reina. All of these patterns are available on Ravelry. It is by Noura Backlund, and it is a one skein wonder. So this is one skein of the Tiara sock, which I dye myself, and the colorway is Sodalite. It is the perfect size for like covering that little triangle of skin that always freezes in the wintertime. Maybe it's just me, but I always find that my jacket doesn't always come all the way up, and then this covers that little bit. And it's a very simple pattern. It alternates some mesh, try to see if you can see the mesh, with garter stitch. That was a fun knit. And a great use of those like odd skeins of yarn you might have that you're like, you really loved the variegated color, but then you don't know what to do with it. You can do the one skein thing. This is the Retro Robe by Anique St. Louis. It took 3 skeins of our Scepter Bulky in Cloud, which is just our natural base. The light is kind of washing out the ribbing, but I thought it would be nice to show you it on. And I wear this all the time in the cooler weather for sure. It is super cozy and soft and a nice easy knit. And this was the largest size and it took 3 skeins of bulky. So if you are more petite than I am, then you will need far less. Now for our first sweet paprika pattern. This is Epaulement by Elizabeth Sullivan. Oh, thank you, Christina. It is so wearable. Often I knit things because I think they're fun to knit, but then it's not something I necessarily put in my closet and wear it. But that little shrug is the most wearable thing I've ever made myself. I've worn it a lot. So this is Epaulement by Elizabeth Sullivan. It takes 2 skeins of sweet paprika messa di voce, which is their fingering base. This is shown in Georgian Bay, and it is a fairly simple lace. It is with a stockinette background, so it's kind of like a single-sided lace. That's very light and airy. I think earlier I heard somebody was here from Florida, and this would be kind of if you were in Florida on the cooler days and you wanted to pretend it was cold. This would be great because it's a nice lightweight thing. My parents go down to Florida for the winter, and you always can tell the locals because, like, my parents are not locals and they'll be like dressed like Canadians in Florida, and the locals are in like parkas and toques. Speaking of toques, this is the Sockhead Slouch Hat, which again, this is like a potato chip knitting situation. It takes one skein, not even one skein of sock yarn, and it makes like the cutest little slouchy hat. And if you want your slouchier, of course, you would just go longer with it. Um, this one is again in my tiara sock base, and the colorway is called Fireball, which is one of, I have two little boys, and I have two colorways in my collection that were, one was designed by one, and the other was designed by the other one. So this is designed by my youngest, and it's called Fireball. And the one that my eldest designed is, I don't have his sample handy, but it is called Space Jam, if you want to look out for that one. Next, oh, before I switch, let me show you the page again in case you need it. Um, so this way, here is all of the patterns. And we're going to just switch over to the next set of patterns and keep on trucking. So these are the next ones we're going to be looking at. I'm going to start with the Eiko by Eri Shimizu. And that is what's on the mannequin in the picture. So you can see kind of how it hangs. It's a boxy sweater designed to be off, like drop shoulder like that. Let me switch it so that you can see me again. So it has the very slightest V-neck at the front, or you can wear it to the back, and that makes it a little bit different. And also on the front, there's kind of this line going down the middle, which does not happen at the back. There is a very subtle stitch pattern that is really striking in person, but it's very subtle. And there's also that same line. I would put it on for you, but it does not fit me. So there's that same line going down the sleeve. Where's my camera? So it was a very popular pattern in my booth, or sample in my booth this year. And it is knit with 3 skeins of the Messa de Voce fingering weight yarn from Sweet Paprika. And that gets you the medium to large size. So it is quite, the yarn goes quite a long way. Now, next up is this Axiom scarf. I have had this scarf in my booth all summer, actually since spring. And for some reason, I guess when you're looking in the springtime and in the summertime, you don't want to look at worsted weight scarves. But the last show I did, everybody and their mother was asking about this scarf. So it is a really lovely two-sided, you can cable pattern. Oh, that's not helpful. So you can see it's like a reversible cable pattern. And it is in the worsted weight. And I love this because I find it really unisex. I would make this for my husband, and I would also probably then steal it. So it's really cozy. It's really warm. And it takes 3 skeins of the worsted weight. And this is the Andante from Sweet Paprika in kelp, which is, I don't know if the cameras, I never know if the camera's doing it justice. Our pictures online of Sweet Paprika in particular are very well color corrected. But it is a very rich, tonal, kind of forest green. Keeping on the theme with Sweet Paprika, this is That Night There Were Roses by Debbie Sullivan. And this is knit in one set of the Crescendo Gradient in the color Black Rose. So you can see how smoothly those color transitions happen. Oh, it's tangling. And this would be another good Floridian pattern because it's very lightweight. Uh, if you liked the shrug I showed you previously, this is the Edith shrug. It is spelt very peculiarly. It's not spelled Edith like you would think, um, but it is, I think it's Gaelic in some way. So if you're interested in it, it'll be on the slide. The first shrug is hang on. It is the Retro Rogue shrug. So that's Retro Rogue, and it's by Anique St. Louis. And this one is the Edith shrug by Debbie Sullivan. You're welcome. This one took 3 skeins of their minuet, which is their DK or sport kind of weight. It has a really nice cable detail at the edge and around the neck, bottom, and front. This one is, I think, the second to smallest size that it comes in. And it is a really cute pattern. In terms of fit, again, it doesn't fit me, so I can't show you, but it kind of comes like here, and then it goes down to your elbow. Or it should if it's the right size, I guess. So that's that one. And then we have the Beacon Hat by Cara McKinley. So this is another like semi-slouchy hat. I like my hats a little slouchy, so I tend to just make all of my hats slouchy, even if they're not supposed to be. You could like roll it and make it more like fisherman style if you were so inclined. This is made with the Lana Grande hat kit that we have in stock. We have a few different colors by Cascade. It's super chunky. Perfect for last minute gift knitting if you are a parent of wee children who have like a bajillion teachers and you feel very generous, you can knit them hats and this wouldn't take you too long. My favorite feature is that the pom-poms that come with it are detachable. Now the kits themselves came with a pattern, but they are older stock, and because of that, the pattern website no longer works, which is why I found this hat pattern, which honestly I like better than the original hat pattern that came with the kit. This is a free pattern on Ravelry, and it's called the Beacon Hat. But I have made this hat with probably about 4 or 5 different hat patterns over the years, and everyone has come out fantastically. Any chunky hat pattern will work. So that is that page. So here you go one last time if you need to snap a picture of that. And that'll have all of your details of what to search up when you're on Ravelry. Alrighty. Now, next up, I hope you like color, and you might want to get your sunglasses for this one because it is bright. This is the next bunch of patterns. I will bring it up again afterwards in case you need to take a picture. But this is, I called it my dopamine sweater. I took about 5 or 6 months to crochet it. When you're a plus size girl, it takes a little time to make your sweaters. This is the Granny Hexagon sweater. She is big and bright and beautiful. It is a rainbow, so goes from purple, I don't know if you can see that that's purple, all the way through to red, and then starts going back out again, and then on the back you can see where it gets connected. So if you're a crocheter, this is quite fun construction. It's reminds me of the baby surprise jacket in that you start out knitting one thing or making one thing, crocheting one thing, and you end up putting it together and it looks completely different because you're starting out making 2 flat-ish hexagons, and then you just do magic at the end and it becomes a sweater. There is an option to keep your sleeves loose and have them be like big bell sleeves. Because of the size I was making it in, that would have been a kind of preposterous sized bell sleeve, and I like to pull my sleeves up anyways, so I made them balloon sleeves instead. So that is my masterpiece for the year. But yes, if you would like to get noticed, you can make it in all the colors that Cascade makes, like I did. But you can also be more sedate with your color selection and do neutrals or just do a couple of colors or do it all in one color. Um, Now, depending on what size you're making, you can end up making it cropped. Because mine was a bigger one, it doesn't really end up being, and I'm short, so it doesn't really end up being cropped on me in any way. I can't make it cropped if I wanted to. But if you were tall and thin, then it would be cropped. And if you wanted it longer, you'd have to add to the bottom. But it's a very well-written pattern. Oh, I'm glad you liked that, Monica. Yeah, it was a labor of love. It went to Florida with me when I took my family on vacation. It came back. It went around everywhere. It got very warm and heavy in the summer to be working on, but it was fun. And the colors, like it was always just like, oh, I'm just gonna do the next color. Oh, let's do the next color. It is though, like I said, I'm a plus size gal, so that's like a kilo of yarn. It's a lot of yarn. It's almost like a jacket. But I love it. So next up, a sweater. Oh, hang on. One more thing. Next up is gnome. I know gnomes have been super popular the last few years. This is by Sarah Shira, the maker of most gnomes. This is called the Choose Your Gnome Adventure. If you are going to buy one of Sarah's patterns, this is the one you should buy because you choose your gnome adventure. You can make 3 different kinds of hats, 3 different kinds of bodies, 2 different kinds of noses, 2 different kinds of hands. And with the different variations you make, you can make like an army of different gnomes just with this one pattern. So it is, and you can do different weights of yarn and different sizes. So by the time all is said and done, you can outfit your whole neighborhood with gnomes and they would all be different just with this one pattern. I also discovered that her gnome construction in most of her patterns are similar. So in every pattern I have seen, you start at the top, work your way down, finish your hat, pick up, and then keep going. And so there's obviously more details to that and increases and decreases and all of that fun stuff, but that is kind of the way of things. So this is a great base pattern to kind of cut your gnome teeth on, and then you can pick up some of her more advanced patterns. This is all knit in Tiara sock, and it made the medium-sized gnome. I filled it with beans, which makes it like super satisfying. However, I have heard that if you fill your things with beans, that you then therefore should not put it anywhere moist, or you might grow your beans. So, yeah, I have never done that, but someone said, oh, make sure you don't put it. I don't know why I would put a stuffy in my bathroom, but they were like, don't put it in your bathroom. I did something like that and my beans sprouted. And I was like, oh, yeah, they come to life, literally. So he's fun and very versatile. Next, a different kind of rainbow sweater. This is a sweet paprika pattern. It is called Little Knots. They also have an adult version called Knots. I used to carry the kits for this, which came with these adorable buttons. I don't anymore because I carry the yarn and I just didn't find that the kits sold fast enough for me to justify keeping them in on their own. But it is a very cute little sweater for baby. It takes 2 skeins of sweet paprika andante in chimney smoke. This is the chimney smoke color. But the 2 skeins will knit you all the way up to, I think, like an 18-month to 2-year-old. So it goes quite a long way. And it's very cute. It has like this little kind of, I don't know, it's not really a cable, but it kind of is a little cable. I'm not sure what's happening there, but it's very cute. And I'm actually strongly considering, this is a big runner for, we have a niece being expected by the end of this year. We're expecting a new niece, and that is a contender for the baby knit. So next up, this was a really popular pattern in the last couple of years. This is the Killer Queen Cowl. It is now a whole collection of patterns. Mary Annarella is the designer, and she has done Killer Queen cowl, shawl, cardigan, maybe sweater, pullover, some kind of armed thing. Um, and so if you are a fan of trying different stitches, this is great. And again, this is great if you are a fan of variegated yarns in the skein, but not a fan of variegated yarns in mass on a project. This is a great way to kind of integrate those variegated yarns. So this is one skein of, actually, I think I have the yarn. So this is, believe it or not, no one ever believes me when I tell them, it's one skein of this, which is called clownfish, with actually with two skeins of sweet paprika. But if you wanted to use the same base, exactly the same base, this would be my version of a dark gray, which is a very different dark gray, but it still matches the base yarn. So it's like a cowl that looks like a shawl. It's got like a bandana front. So that one's been super popular. Right. And next up, Rachel from Bear Valley Fibers. You might have guessed we're good friends. Uh, she very generously sent me a project that she made with my yarn. So this is my worsted weight, coronet worsted. The color is malachite, like the stone. And she made this kind of scarf shawl called Wrapped in Luxury by London Yarns. And it took two skeins of um, of the worsted weight. It's like almost like a stole because it's quite big. You could kind of like thinking like in a holiday party, you could totally wear this and you could even bead the lacy edge a little bit. It could be really, really something. So that is the Wrapped in Luxury. So while I fold this, I will switch back to the PowerPoint. If you need to grab any of those pattern details, if you have any questions, throw them in the chat or unmute. I'm open to either. If you hear squeaking, there are 3 children in my house right now, so squeaking is kind of a thing here. All right. And this is our last page of samples, which I think is going to bring us right to the end of my presentation, actually, or to my time. So I will start with this one like last time, except I'm going to move my big head again because I think I'm blocking too much of the pattern. So again, this is one of those kind of boxy designs of the construction of the sweater. It's called the Warm Me Tea by Norgard Knitters. I'll move myself back and I will show you it in the flesh. Here we go. So this color was designed as part of a collection of colors I did last year called themed around gelato. My background is Italian and gelato is my favorite. This is called Puffo, which is Italian for Smurf. And it is kind of the Italian gelato answer to like cotton candy ice cream. So this is like 500 million bobbles, but it took just 2 skeins, and apparently she had about half a skein left or some skein left on both of them. So it took 2 skeins of the fingering weight tiara sock combined with 2 skeins of filigree, which is our Surrey silk. A couple of years ago, or a few years ago, when the ranunculus and the love note, and which continue to be popular, were going around, I had everybody and their mom come and ask me for mohair, but I have a controversial opinion about mohair in that I think it sucks. I think that it is misleading. I think it looks soft and delightful. And when you touch it, it is scratchy and awful. There, I said it. I'm going to start wars here, but that's what I think. So when I found Surrey alpaca and silk, that is what I decided to stock. And this feels like a cloud. It is so soft. It is so lovely. Like, I think that if I actually wore this, I would just pet myself all day, which might be problematic, but it is just delicious. So, and it gives you that same halo that you would get. You can see it more there against my darker hair, that you would get from a mohair, but without that like awful feeling. No shade to people who dye mohair. Some people must love mohair. I just am not, I'm not that person. All right. I feel like Surrey is just, I mean, yeah, that's just the way to go. I think that the clothes in heaven must be made out of Surrey. Like, it's just so soft. This here is a Tunisian crocheted pattern. So I don't know if anyone is a Tunisian crocheter. It is not something I have dabbled in. Um, but a good friend of mine learned to do it just because she liked this pattern so much. This is the Sunny Honey Infinity Scarf by Margot Bauman. It takes one set of the Sweet Paprika Crescendo sets, and you can double wrap it. It's quite generously big, so you can double wrap it, and it does fun things. Um, but the stitch pattern is really pretty, and I don't know if it's showing up in here. Oh, there. Yes. So you kind of use one side of the gradient over top of the other side of the gradient. So it just comes together and uses them. So it's kind of going in a gradient on top of going in a gradient. It's very interesting. So that is the Sunny Honey Infinity Scarf. If you are a Tunisian crocheter or if you are maybe considering trying Tunisian crochet one day. Next up, on the topic of crochet, this has been a very popular sample in the last year. This is the Ziggy Interrupted scarf by Sandra Paul. This one is made in 5 skeins of, this was the 5 original colors of my gelato collection. So we have, in terms of the colors, Caramello Salato, which is salted caramel, Fragola, which is strawberry, Pistachio, which is self-explanatory, Pufo, which is Smurf, Gianduja, which is like Nutella, and they come together to make this pretty pastel situation. So this is the person who made this is very tall, so that they've made quite a long version of it, but then it has these sweet little tassels at the end as well. So it is a combination of like tiny granny squares. I think the crocheting community calls these little granny squares saltines. And then a kind of chevron-y zigzag pattern that comes together and marries up against those. So that is that. And then last but not least, yeah, it's a really special pattern. And I think that you could do it. I would personally stick to solids just because there's so much going on in the pattern, but I think you could do it with all kinds of different colors and combinations, and it could be pretty special. I've seen one that was like a very autumnal palette. There was like browns and oranges and things like that, and it was very pretty. This is the Frosty Pines shawl by Isabel Kramer, and it took less than 1 skein per color. And the colors are Red Jasper, Smoke and Mirrors, and Cloud. I'm going to be real honest and say I would not recommend putting Cloud right next to Red Jasper in general. I don't think that you should maybe put red right next to the white. It did pick up a tiny bit of the red. I do, when I dye my yarn, I do wash it out until it runs clear, but what happens after it leaves me, I can't be, I can't be responsible for. So yeah, but this is a nice big shawl and very cozy in spite of it being a DK. I really like though the sport weight because it has a little bit more heft to work with than a fingering. Sometimes fingering projects feel like they go on forever because it's such a fine yarn. But it's not as heavy or bulky as a worsted. Like you could do this pattern in a worsted and it would be a much heavier pattern or a much heavier garment when it's done. But the lace pattern's really pretty. And it's just a combination of that lace and garter stitch and stripes. And I think there's a little, yeah, there's a little ribbing at the end. So that is the last of our patterns. So I'm going to shoot back over to show you the PowerPoint again in case you need to see those patterns and take any notes. And then I'm going to scooch you over to the end just for a reminder to take note of the coupon code. It's virtual with a capital V 2024. And that's good until October 31st. It's not going to apply to everything in the shop, but I actually made it apply to more things than I've ever applied it to before. So you are going to have lots of fun shopping if you choose to do so. The crochet scarf is Ziggy Interrupted, the one with the zigzags, Ziggy Interrupted. And I will hop back. It is here, 5 skeins of fingering weight, and it's by Sandra Paul. I think that more or less concludes. I don't quite have enough time to launch into any felting for you. I could do a little show and tell about things that I've finished lately if we have time to fill Eureka. It's up to you. But that is the end of all of my sample fun. And thank you so much for tuning in and watching and playing with Fibre with me today.
Thank you. Is there any other questions for Marisa? No? I love seeing those samples. Samples are good.
Thanks. Yeah, I thought it would be a fun change of pace from my usual felting. Although I feel like I should show you some, like if I have 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I know Eureka, you're a weaver, and I have been dabbling in my weaving because I'm going to be teaching classes for my little looms that I carry. So this is the sample for one of my classes. So it's just showing, it's kind of like a little stitch sampler.
That's so cute.
So it's just little, it hangs on the back of my desk. And then I've got I don't know if anybody here is local to Ontario, but in North Bay, Ontario, there is a yarn shop called Sticks and Stones, and I'm going to be teaching a class there on these little woven Christmas trees. If you can see, and I have like a simple one and a more complicated one. So those are my weaving wins for the week. And I think that that's all I have to show and tell. Thank you, everybody, for the kind comments in the chat.
Okay, let's stop the recording. Thank you so much, Marisa. Nice to have you again.
Thank you. Always great to be here.